Hello everyone and welcome back to the Racing Mentor Sponsorship Podcast. As always, I'm here with racing driver Toby Trice. How are you doing today, Toby?
I'm good, Jess. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Buzzing.
Yeah, me too. Another episode. These are going down really well, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited about this one. It might not be necessarily as positive as we normally are, but I think it's an important one.
For sure, but we'll put a positive twist on this, and there's some good tips to come.
Absolutely.
So, Jess, the webinar was last Tuesday. How did it go?
Yeah, it went really well. Like, it was so nice to talk about how to build relationships with potential sponsors. Like, in all of the training that I've done, over the last few years, I've always talked about how important it is to approach warm leads where you can, but I've never really done any formal training on how to create warm leads. So it was really nice to kind of go through all of the ways that you can kind of get in touch with business owners and decision makers that you don't know and warm them up before you pitch. And I'm quite excited to see the results of the homework that I set everyone before tonight's webinar. I asked everyone to, send out a few little kind of relationship building messages to dream brands to see kind of how they got on. And then tonight I'm going to teach like the anatomy of a winning sponsor pitch. So we're going to go through like pitches that have actually won sponsorship and, what makes them stand out and what makes them appealing.
Sounds super exciting. I mean, it's a really important step what you taught last week, and the whole relationship building part is really, really key to brand new sponsors and ongoing sponsorship, Jess, isn't it? It's a really important part.
Yeah, exactly. And then someone asked me the question, like how many relationships can you be building at any one time? And I think it made me realize that people think about this too clinically. It's just about making new friends and having chats on social media. You don't really need to force it. But I feel like I'm doing this every day and I know you are, because you're like me, you're quite chatty and, you like to engage with people online. And I think that's actually a skill a lot of racing drivers or like racing parents need to learn, is just get used to chatting to folk online, because you never know what might come of it. Absolutely,
yeah. And I just love chatting to people and finding out about their story and why they created the business and all the cool stuff that they've got going on. And that genuine interest really comes across. And like I say, when you've got kind of a good structure with it as well, then yeah, the more the merrier, really. You don't know who you're going to talk to next, so that's part of the excitement, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in this podcast today, we're going to talk about what drivers are getting wrong. And I'd love to be talking about what people are getting right, but that doesn't help anyone, does it? So I guess let's first talk to you, Toby, about kind of before you started your sponsorship journey, did you kind of have any preconceived notions of what sponsorship should look like and what the approach might be based on what you knew from other drivers?
Yeah, I mean, I knew very little. I never really looked into sponsorship prior to actually becoming a racing driver, because it did come with a bit of a shock, kind of out of the blue, I guess. But in the kind of weeks or months leading up to me meeting you and getting your book, I was very much on the kind of imagination that it was still kind of a sticker on a race car, and you'd go to companies and say, "Hey, I'm a racing driver. How do you fancy sponsoring me?" And I actually thought that was the angle. And since then, I've obviously developed my own skills through your help, Jess, and that complete mindset is totally wrong. So yeah, I was straight 2 feet in and doing it all completely wrong to start with. But thanks to you, Jess, I've kind of I've learned my way.
And you know what? I did exactly the same thing when I was first running my marketing agency before I kind of wound it back up again. I helped out a friend who was doing karting by getting him sponsorship, and I was exactly the same. I thought it would be a sticker on the car and the businesses would be there to kind of support him. I was completely wrong, and like the way that I learned all of this was just by getting it wrong. So I don't want anyone who's listening to this and all the stuff that we're about to say to get really disheartened that they've been doing it wrong for so long, because at least you're in the right place to kind of learn the best way to do things. But I'm very much of the mindset that we can learn from our mistakes, and you do sometimes just have to muddle through and get stuff wrong.
Yeah, and I think with getting stuff wrong is the only way you learn. We all make mistakes, even now I do. There's no harm in making mistakes, but I think as long as you kind of learn from perhaps mistakes you've made in the past and embrace it and take education tools to take you forward, then you're kind of in a better place. But that's why we're here, to make a positive spin on it. I know there'll be a lot of drivers here in this podcast listening that perhaps have raced maybe 2-3 years self-funded, or through a sponsor that's been a voluntary sponsor from someone in the family, or whatever. But now you're looking to elevate your kind of racing career and climb the ladder where it becomes more expensive, and learn these skills to help elevate your motorsport career.
Yeah. So I want to kind of start with the big ones first. And I think the biggest one that I see people doing still when they send me pitches is they're not including any obvious benefit to the company. There's no like, this is why you should sponsor me and this is how it's going to affect you.
Yeah, and go back to previous episodes, Jess, isn't it, about features and benefits? Super important part is talk about how it can benefit a company, right? Do your research, do your homework, and then you've got kind of something that you can go by that actually benefits the company that you're talking to.
Exactly. So anyone that's kind of wondering where they can find that podcast, I think it's episode 4, where we kind of go into the details of like everything that you might be offering within sponsorship. So hospitality, social media, events, that kind of stuff. We go into the clear benefits of those, so you can kind of go and take some inspiration from that. But kind of as part of that, I see that drivers are talking way too much about themselves in their pitch emails as well. So they're going in and just saying, hey, I'm a racing driver who's won things and I'm great and you should sponsor me. And it just doesn't work. No one cares. Further down the line, they'll care. And, that's when, your win record becomes important, but you need to make that relevant. So you need to make it clear that they should work with you from a business point of view. So then they can get excited about who you are.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I've had recently some firsthand experience with this with my current sponsors, that they've received emails from several racing drivers where they've said, hey, I was 2018 champion, please sponsor me, I'll put your sticker on my car and it'll be live ITV4 coverage. And my sponsors I've got such a good relationship with that I can talk really openly about sponsorship and how kind of we operate. And just to hear their thoughts was really interesting. They were just like, I don't care. There's no benefit to my company that you were a champion in 2018 and my car or the sticker on the car is going to be on ITV4. And, that's genuine feedback, right? That's a real case scenario that's actually happened. So yeah, to turn it around, let's turn this into a positive thing. Yes, it's great that, there are champions out there. I'd love to be a champion one day, and my sponsors also will love for me to be a champion one day. But initially, that doesn't benefit a company. So you've got to twist it around and look at how you can show benefit to a company. And then, like you say, Jess, later on down the line, for sure, let's talk about championships with one and all the cool stuff. But that's all part of the rapport building process.
Exactly. And actually, this goes back to the webinar that I did last week, in that, if you build a rapport with someone first, they already know who you are and they're excited about your story.
Yeah, too right.
So another one that I still see people doing, and actually probably the people who are listening to this podcast maybe don't do this anymore, because I feel like I've hammered this home so many times to like the racing mentor audience, but blanket emailing people with the same pitch does not work. You might get one, sponsorship deal that's like 20% off some tires, or you might get 100 quid, but it's not going to be life-changing amounts of money if you're blanket emailing people. You need to create very personal emails that, again, it always goes back to benefits. You need to talk about those benefits for that specific company, because generic benefits don't benefit anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to turn this around and put us racing drivers in the sponsorship shoes, I'm sure many people have had emails in the past through their actual email inbox, or maybe their LinkedIn inbox or social media, where someone will say, hey, you're on social media, you look like you can grow your followers. I can help you do that with these 3 points. And it will say X, Y, and Z. And it clearly is not personal to me. It's clearly just my name has been changed on hundreds of thousands of emails that have been pumped out by some bot. And how many times do you just look at that and go, oh, delete? That's the first thing you do. So if you're doing blanket emails, business owners and potential sponsors are fully aware that these sort of emails go out. They probably get a lot more of these kind of blanket emails from all different, walks of life and industries, because there's lots of things that can help their business grow. And if they're just going to see a non-personal kind of blanket email sent out that's really obvious, then what are they going to do? They're just going to hit the delete button. And you could be offering the most amazing sponsorship deal of your life. Like you could really help that company, your kind of goals align and everything would work out. But if you've just sent a blanket email to them, then why would that sponsor even think about considering you as a sponsor?
Yeah, and I think that there's a thing here in that communicating benefits is all well and great, but if you're blanket emailing someone, they're not going to be afraid to hit delete or even hit spam if the message isn't personal. Whereas if you address it directly to a person, you address something that they did, that they've recently done on Twitter, and you ask them a question that's quite clear to their business, they're going to feel much more guilty if they delete it or don't reply to you, because they realize that there's a real human being behind that email. Whereas, like, just like your example, Toby, if you're sending something that looks like it's come from a bot that's just changed the names, they're not going to care if they hit delete.
No, because they're not accountable for it because they've just kind of glanced over it and just gone, oh, delete. It's so
Yeah.
easy to delete that. It's a bit like junk mail through your letterbox. If you see some badly branded, not well written kind of piece of copy from, I don't know, from a company, I don't look at them. I just go straight in my bin.
Yeah.
Like, and it goes back to, I think I mentioned it in one of the previous episodes where, that through my letterbox, that analogy of a piece of mail coming from my letterbox could be amazing. It could be sending a great service, a great product that genuinely could help my life. But I just like, not bothered. So
Yeah.
we're in this modern world now, Jess, aren't we? Where building relationships, it goes back to your last week's webinar, building rapport with people and actually creating interest is far better than just sending out a blank email.
Mm.
And just a little tip for kind of emailing, because I think a lot of people get quite worked up on making sure it's very like properly worded. The most success I've had out of my emails I've sent to people is where I've actually emailed them quite a chatty way. Arguably, it's good or bad. I have got more success, so I've actually preferred to sort of email in a more chatty way because my personality comes across then. And then when people talk to me on the phone, they're like, oh, okay, this is Toby. This is the guy that that's quite friendly, quite happy to talk to me about X, Y, and Z. I don't know about you, Jess. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm quite a chatty writer anyway. I know that there are so many people that have read Get Paid to Race that are like, oh my God, it's like having a chat with my best friend.
It really is.
I think that's Lindsay Close that said that, which is obviously the best compliment I've ever had ever. And that's exactly what I wanted from the book. So I think that's very much my style. I think chatty comes across really well. Like, you're not a lawyer, you're not, trying to impress anyone with how you write. And often it comes across as really disingenuous. And I think, like, if it's forced and if it's not real, then anyone who's reading it will again think, oh, is this a bot? So, but if there's a bit of your personality in there, maybe there's an emoji. I always put an emoji in a pitch email these days. Things like that show that you're a real human being. And again, it's much harder to delete an email from someone that's clearly, written to you personally. And I always see this as a journalist, I get tons and tons of press releases, and they're all clearly sent by real people. And I delete most of them or ignore most of them because they're not relevant, which is, again, do your research. I do not write about fashion anymore. But if a journalist, even if the press release itself is irrelevant, if a journalist goes, hey, Jess, I saw that you're doing this and I thought this might be relevant, I'll reply to them and say, no, sorry, it's not for me, or I'll take a look, or whatever. I'll at least reply. So I think the biggest thing about not blanket sending emails is that at least you'll get no's. And I know that this sounds really silly, but getting a no is actually a big win, because it at least means that your email has been read. It just might not be right for that business. Whereas if you're blanket emailing, you'll never know. They're probably just getting deleted, which is way worse.
Yeah, completely. And it kind of brings us slightly onto our next point is, I think it's going back to kind of researching the businesses, is that in the emails we're sending out to people, most people don't actually talk about what the business goals are. And I think that's where a lot of people do actually go wrong, is because you've not even acknowledged where that business is heading, or perhaps they've got like a 25-year anniversary this year or something, or they're doing something really cool at an event. If you're not acknowledging those kind of things, you're really missing the trick, because actually they're the things they're most proud about.
Mm, absolutely. And well, I know we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but I think if you can link what you're doing to something that they're doing, so it might be a big event, it might be an anniversary. If you can link like the way that your motorsport stuff can help them with those things. So let's say that next year they're having a 75th anniversary for something. You can talk about, how you could help throw a massive party, or you could, do a keynote speech at their big, event or something like that. You can kind of link it all together, and suddenly they can start to picture it. So doing research and looking at goals isn't just, something that you have to do before pitching. It's actually something that you need to weave into your pitch as well. And I find that, I mean, I've got pitches from drivers where, and that people who are in the sponsorship community already know exactly what I'm trying to do because I'm really open about it, and yet people that have pitched me from there still don't address my goals. So I know this is something that people get kind of stuck on, and I know that it takes a lot of practice to kind of get used to this, like how you look at someone's website and what they're doing. But even if you can't work out exactly what their goal is, at least reference something that they're doing or will be doing in the future, because again, it shows personality and it shows that you've done your homework.
Yeah, completely. And that kind of brings me on to social media, Jess. I think something that a lot of people do wrong or maybe miss a trick is when someone follows you, lots of people get hung on the amount of followers you've got. Having a big audience is great, of course, but if they're not engaged, then there's no point. But I think a lot of people, and this is only just from my experience of me following other accounts, is that you never get an acknowledgement that you've been followed. Now, lots of businesses follow racing drivers if they have an interest in motorsport, or B, their target audience could be through motorsport channels. And I've had some really amazing chats with people and companies quite recently just by acknowledging the fact that they followed me. And it's not an opportunity to talk about yourself, but I think a lot of drivers miss this boat because I've actually followed lots of drivers recently and I've never had a hello or anything back. Now, that might be because I'm a racing driver like them and there's not a lot of need to, but what you've got to imagine is if there's a business that follows you, the next time that happens, don't just ignore the follow, acknowledge it. It's your opportunity to say, hey, how are you? Thanks for following me. Your business looks really cool. What have you been up to? Have you got anything going on? And on social media, you can make it really relaxed like that and chilled out. Jess, what are your thoughts on that? Because you obviously get lots of people that follow you and you follow them. And do you get any of that kind of response?
So I don't think I've ever had anyone message me after I followed them saying thanks for the follow, but I might get a message later on from someone saying, oh, I just really love what you're doing, I've been enjoying your feed, something like that. But I used to do this, like every driver that followed me on Instagram, I would message personally saying, hey, you can find some extra resources here, or you can ask me questions. But I just don't have time to do that now. Especially now that my Instagram is growing like 30 or 40 people a week, I wish I could still do that. But if a business follows me and I know that there could, one day maybe be some kind of partnership, or I might want to buy something from them or vice versa, I will always say thank you. So sorry I don't do it, racing drivers. But I certainly with kind of like my personal account, like if a car company follows me and I know that there's, maybe potential work for there for me in the future, if I build the right relationship, then I'll say thank you. But I think, drivers don't necessarily have to spend like a lot of time on this, but even just like maybe once a week or once a month, go through new followers and just send like a hey to people, and just, ask a question, especially if you think that there might be a bit of synergy there. Maybe someone from your dream kind of company has followed you. You should absolutely jump on that, because it's not a cold lead then, that they've already been warmed up by the fact that they're following you. So I think it's quite important just to kind of keep an eye on your socials, because I think people underestimate what a powerful tool social media can be for building sponsorship relationships.
Definitely. And put it this way, I've got 2 sponsorships from the back of just chatting on social media. So it
Yeah.
works.
I would say I've got probably all of mine but one from chatting on social media. It doesn't even have to be a message. Like, even if someone's not following you, just kind of getting involved in what they're talking about on social media can be enough to get them to follow you, especially if what you're saying is, entertaining or informative. This is why I think LinkedIn is so good, because it's so easy to get involved in discussions with people that you don't already have a connection with. So you can kind of open up that relationship just by, talking to them on a post that they've made. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, can we talk about what people do wrong on LinkedIn? Because I've seen race teams at really high level on LinkedIn. I've seen racing drivers on LinkedIn promoting what they do. I think it'd be a really nice point actually here now to talk about what people do wrong on LinkedIn, because
Mm.
what I've seen lately from some famous drivers, yes, I've seen some very famous drivers, some very well established teams do this, where they've sort of gone, we are on ITV4, so many rounds of the year, you're going to get your brand in front of millions of viewers.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
And then you go, and the post gets really little engagement.
Mm.
And quite right, they have got amazing things to offer. Like, if you know the team and you know what they're doing and you know where they're going, then for sure they've got some amazing stuff on offer. But the fact they get very little engagement shows to me that actually
No
no
one
one was
cares.
bothered. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, let's talk about what people do wrong on LinkedIn. What have you seen, Jess?
So there's one person who works for a team that I'm always seeing that is like, we're up and coming and we've got all of these partnerships available. Get in touch if you want to know more. I don't want to know more, mate. Sorry. And I think everyone, like, it'll get like 2 likes and it's from people who drive for the team. It's just embarrassing. And I think businesses see it and think you're just asking for money without offering anything. Whereas, like, I'm not one to complain about stuff without giving a solution. So
For
a
sure.
better approach would be to say, this is what we did with a recent sponsor, and look how happy they are. Here's a testimonial, or here's a smiling face, because that says so much more. And like, if you're a big team in a big series, you should have lots of photography of your sponsors enjoying themselves. If you can maybe post a picture of hospitality and everyone having fun, maybe something a bit exclusive and behind the scenes, then businesses will see that and think, oh, I want to be part of that. I want to go and talk to all these other businesses. And suddenly you've got interest and engagement. And by having the engagement, that post goes further. So it's not just the people in your network who are seeing it. So I think that's like my biggest bugbear on LinkedIn is people just saying, well, on anywhere, is just saying, hey, can I have some money because I race or I run a race team and we go on television, when actually there's so many more effective ways to do it that will literally have sponsors knocking on your door.
Yeah, literally, it's just a strategy change, isn't it? Like, if you do these activities all the time anyway, and you've got amazing content and you've got, like, say, video footage, pictures, live testimonials from their guests, um, they're gonna go like a tenfold. They're gonna be incredible. I did a little post on LinkedIn quite a while ago, actually, just after my one of my sponsors' track days at Brands Hatch, where I put some little testimonial quotes up of some of the guests that was there. I did a little talk about kind of what went on during the day and what results kind of came out of it. And the engagement I got was incredible. I had loads of people sort of private message me more than I did commenting. But it was like, wow, how do I get involved in that? How does this work? And straight away you're getting conversation with people. And I just think, yeah, it's just a mindset thing, Jess, isn't it? I think it's just what you talk about so much is don't talk about yourself. Talk about either the people that are actually getting benefit from this right now from your sponsors and your current clients, or how you can align that with potentially people's goals.
Mm.
And it is just such a simple mindset change, and it's amazing the difference afterwards, what kind of response you get. And just on the kind of LinkedIn front, I'm not an expert for sure. I'm still learning. I'm kind of building my own profile up and stuff, but I'm actually getting quite a lot of famous racing drivers view my profile now on LinkedIn, which shows that I'm clearly doing something right, because I'm getting engagement with companies and motorsport people. So yeah, just a little heads up.
So there's, I guess, an old adage that probably goes back to English class, but it's something as a writer I think about a lot, is show, don't tell. And that actually goes for social media as well, especially if you're talking about what you're doing in sponsorship. Just saying, something like, hey, there's sponsorship available is a bit redundant. Well, of course there is, you're a racing driver. But, and just saying things like, oh yes, sponsorship packages available and you'll be on ITV4. Okay, fine, that you're telling what you're doing. Again, it's a feature. Whereas if you're showing maybe some like TV coverage, but again, like no one really cares about TV coverage really. But if you're showing like lots of people at a race and lots of people gathered around your car, lots of eyes on the branding, or maybe you did a bit of sponsorship activation in the garage and you had products there or signage there, showing that kind of stuff tells so much more than sponsorship available. So like let's say there's a picture of a driver in a garage, lots of people around, and then maybe some drinks products. They're all drinking these drinks products and chatting to the racing driver while stood around the car. That tells you, we can have your products in the garage, we will get your products in the hands of people. We have people in our garage throughout our race weekend who are excited to chat to the racing driver. Racing driver will actively promote your brand. It tells so much more.
100%.
So I think people should start to think about how they can show, not tell. So anytime you post anything, are you telling your audience what you're doing, or are you showing them?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've just put, again, like you say, Jess, it's good to always find a solution to problems. And I think this is a really positive spin on, what people are currently doing versus how you can just make them small changes to make it super incredible. And genuinely, race teams at all levels, racing drivers at all levels can do such amazing things for sponsors that you're then making it almost a no-brainer for them companies to go, do you know what, let's have a bit of that, let's get involved because this looks pretty cool and I think this will really work for our company, versus okay, they're on ITV4 and then the dead silence afterwards of no one clicking the like or even engaging in the post. So yeah, it works, doesn't it? It works. I have seen some amazing posts from race teams. I want to flip this over now and look at the good side of it. I've seen some amazing posts by racing drivers and some really good content on there that's been really engaging. And even as a driver myself, I'm like, I want to be part of that. That looks so cool. There was a piece of footage I saw on Netflix or a series on Netflix called Drive to Survive. I'm not sure if the viewers have seen it. I don't know if you have, Jess.
I actually haven't, which is quite embarrassing. I know I need to.
It's amazing. It's probably amazing. But that whole series is actually quite subliminary to sponsorship and how F1 teams activate sponsors, because I think that the industry of F1, because of how lucrative it is for sponsors, but also how expensive it is to be there in F1. I think actually Netflix almost got briefed by F1 to try and elevate F1 for sponsors and for fans. So obviously it was a very engaging series where almost as a fan, you feel like you're a part of it. But the content on there and all the slow B-roll and the real kind of like, up close and personal of the drivers and seeing it, properly, not just the TV coverage of F1, because that's just watching the race. This is actually the behind the scenes. I actually think if you can create that kind of content, A, for your sponsors, which is awesome, that'll be a massive thumbs up because they would get so much from it. But if you kind of created some sort of content like that with a media team, then how awesome would that look to attract more sponsorship? Because I watched that whole series and there was episodes where I got goosebumps. And if I was a business owner that was rich enough to be able to sponsor F1 to get obviously all the benefit out of using F1 as a kind of tool, just on the emotive reasons alone, I'd be like, I'm there. Sign me up now, because it's fantastic. And I'm sure there's many listening to this podcast that have probably watched that and they'll get what I mean. But just that kind of content that's super slick and super cool is really engaging. And I think that kind of stuff should be made for current sponsors and also to try and attract them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that at any level. Like I've worked with drivers at, proper budget club level who are doing video content like that. And it's brilliant. And I did a TV show about 750 Motor Club. And we had so many cool shots of like the cars, and we went to Snetterton and we talked about different local races because it was for local television. And it was just so good to showcase motorsport in that way. And I think more people need to see that. And if more people at like club moving up into like pro-am level did that, then you'd have more spectators at races as well.
For sure.
which
Yeah,
is
for
another
sure.
kettle of fish.
Yeah, and that kind of, you're then working for the community of racing to grow an audience, which then gives bigger numbers towards potential sponsors and all the good stuff. And it's all about promoting the whole sport, isn't it? You know, this
Mm,
sport we're part of is absolutely fantastic, and those that are listening are here because they also love it. So yeah, it's definitely a good course to do that, Jess.
absolutely.
Yeah, shall we move on to our driver of the week?
Yes, I think we should. Now, this driver is someone who has just consistently impressed me because he gets it. So it's Davin Sturdivant, and he is an American karter and sim racer, and he is living proof that you can get sponsored for karting. And lots of people say to me, oh, there's not much real estate on the cart for stickers, and obviously I say stickers on the car don't matter, no one cares.
Hmm.
But he understands how to bring value to a business no matter kind of what he's doing. So when there was no karting on, he was doing sim racing and bringing value to his sponsors in that way. So I've actually had a lot of chats with Davin. He's just so switched on and so kind of business and sponsorship savvy that it just made sense to include him as our driver of the week this week. So congratulations, Davin, and thank you for kind of engaging with Racing Mentor in the way that you have, and promoting what we're doing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, massive congratulations. There's another awesome driver of the week, Jess. I think
Yeah.
he's pretty cool. I was having a look through his Instagram this morning, and like you say, I'll just echo exactly what you said, Jess. He's doing amazing things, and for people here in this podcast that are currently karters, he's quite an inspiration to look at for kind of real case scenario of actually a karter that's getting great sponsorship from karting. You know, lots of people have that, like you say, Jess, of there's not much real estate on the cart. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah,
Who
there's so
cares?
much more that you can do. And if you want to follow him on Instagram, he is at relaxed driver. So easy enough to find. And I've actually relatively, recently have posted about him as well. When I was talking about karting, he let me use some of his pictures, which was very nice. As I've been running out as lockdown has kind of continued.
And is that our first driver across the pond? Because I know Keenan's going out to America soon, but that's our first driver across the pond, isn't it, Jess?
Yeah, first American driver, which is good. And, I want to continue doing this with drivers around the world because Racing Mentor is global. And I think, people who are listening, most of you might be in the UK, but I don't think all of you are. So if you want to be considered for driver of the week, go onto the Racing Mentor sponsorship community and, put yourself forward. We want you to be comfortable with shouting about how great you are. So please go and do that, or you can always message me on any platform that you can find at Racing Mentor, which is most of them. And I just want to kind of add one thing before we sign off. I know this episode might sound like I'm super frustrated with what people are getting wrong, but I just want to kind of hammer home the point that you have to get stuff wrong to learn, and it's fine if you've done all these things and haven't got response or haven't got engagement. And if you're ever stuck, come to me for the solution, because I've literally kind of built my whole career around helping people with this kind of stuff. So don't be afraid to message Racing Mentor and say, hey, I've been blanket sending emails and I don't know what to do next, and I will help you. There is no judgment. We all get stuff wrong, and I did all of these things when I was first starting out, and I didn't have the guidance. So don't be afraid to kind of come and ask me questions, whether it's in the sponsorship group or via private message.
Yeah, just to echo that, guys, for sure. I still message Jess from week on week. I think, Jess. I mean, I'm part of Jess's podium club, so I get a little bit more access to some of the extra features with Jess. But yeah, you know, never stop learning. Take as much as you can from these podcasts, but also if you ever get stuck, like you say, just get in touch with Jess, because it's quite incredible just how a simple chat with her can really change your mindset. It could be just that you're having a bad day, or it could be that you're genuinely struggling on a key point. But I'm testament to that, Jess. I kind of always picking your brains about different ideas that I've got, and would it work? And I think sometimes just having someone to talk to go through that can really clear up whether it's a good route to go down, or if you're actually barking up the wrong tree, and sort of where to go from there. So yeah, thank you for your help, Jess. I really appreciate
No,
it.
you're very welcome. And, like anyone, when they message me, everyone gets a reply and follow up if I don't reply, but everyone gets a reply. And even if, I can't give like a really lengthy answer, I will always point people in the direction of resources, because I've got tons of free stuff out there from, the blog, the YouTube channel, this podcast. It can often be hard to find the thing that you want. So just ask me and I can send it over, because I know exactly, what I've written and recorded and where it is.
Super. But that sums us up for this week. I hope you guys have all taken something from today. Like I say, it's not about a rant of doing things bad, but it's just trying to turn something that perhaps is negative into a positive. And I want you guys, and I know Jess wants you guys to all be awesome and all doing awesome things for sponsors, so that together we grow an amazing race community together. And hope to see everyone on the grid real soon. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.